All right, welcome everyone to the final session of day 2 of the Utah Bike Summit. I'm Trilby Cox with Bike Utah and the Midweek MTB series. We are excited to announce that this is Bike Utah's first time ever holding a free session like this, thanks to our sponsors, Bear River Association of Governments, Woodward Park City, and HNTB. This session in particular is one that is near and dear to my heart as someone who is incredibly passionate about cycling and has also made it a part of my career. I hope that I'm speaking to a good number of middle school and high school students out there. Our goal with this panel is to connect to you, the next generation of Utah's cycling advocates, and highlight some of the careers that you could consider as you think about your future beyond school while continuing your love of cycling. We are going to start today by having our panelists briefly introduce themselves, stating where they work and what their position is. I will then present the panel with some questions and discussion topics. And finally, we will use the remaining part of the session to answer any questions that you guys, participants, have asked in the session chat. So as you think of those questions, go ahead and throw those out there in the chat, and we look forward to getting to those in a bit. So let's start with introductions. Sarah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi there, I'm Sarah Johnson. I work for Specialized Bicycles, and my role is Leader of Planning and Senior Manager of Global Supply Planning and Analytics. What that means is I lead a team who determines which bikes and how many bikes to order for basically the entire world, and then we figure out where in the world those bikes should go.
Great. Greg, you're up.
Hi, my name is Greg Sanchez. I am a traffic engineer working for Avenue Consultants. Traffic engineering is underneath the umbrella of civil engineering. So I essentially make sure that the roadways, infrastructure, streets, everything works for the people, that it flows well and people can get from point A to point B efficiently.
Cool. Jake, let's hear from you.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Jake Kinney. I work for Woodward, the brand, out of Woodward Park City, and I'm the mountain bike sports manager. And it's a great opportunity where I get to help design and build mountain bike trails and work on programming and curriculum to experience how to progress your riding in all different types of mountain biking, from jumping to downhill.
Very cool. Carmen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carmen Valdez. I am the grassroots organizer for the Healthy Environment Alliance of Utah, or HEAL Utah. I educate the public on how to stand up for themselves to community dangers, including, and we fight for clean air, clean energy, and resources, and keeping radioactive waste out of Utah. We do this by encouraging driving less, having safer streets, and encouraging lots of green growth wherever we can.
Super. And Brianne.
Hey everybody, Brianne Nalder Harward. I am the nutrition coach for Plan 7 Endurance Coaching. We work with athletes of all levels, from beginner to professional, on coaching plans and getting ready for events or whatever you're working toward as your goals. And I specifically am the dietitian, so I write the nutrition plans and help athletes learn how to fuel their bodies for optimal performance.
Super. I know that we all appreciate that. Okay, so thanks for the introductions. Let's go ahead and dive into our questions. First question is, what was your education and or career path to this point? And Brianne, let's start with you.
Yeah, my education level is at the master's degree. I have one in clinical dietetics, nutrition, and then I got a second in sports specific. So I went to school and learned about nutrition for athletes. Was that the whole question?
Yeah, yeah, and or your career path up until this point.
Oh, I was a professional road cyclist, and in the becoming one, I guess, learning to fuel my body properly, I became very passionate about the science behind nutrition. So decided to change career paths and go to school for nutrition, and was lucky enough to stay in the industry and now work as a coach. And now that I'm retired at my old age.
Great, thanks. Carmen, same question to you. Education and career path to this point.
Yeah, I have a master's in international affairs and global enterprise where I focused on nonprofit work. I have a bachelor's in political science and a minor in campaign management. And my education career path blended very much together because I had to work in order to pay for my education. There was a time in my undergrad and right out of high school, I thought I would go to law school. But I never wanted to pay all that money to not become a lawyer because I knew I wanted to be in more government or nonprofit side. And I had an awesome opportunity through my bachelor's degree to be a part of multiple different internships, including the Utah State Legislature and then out in DC for the Latino Leaders Network. And from there, it just kind of solidified I didn't want to go to law school, and I found an awesome master's program. And I worked at a law firm out of Utah to be able to attend school and learn a lot of really cool things. And it's led me to an awesome career. I finally feel like all the education that you go through pays off when you're like, oh, I have the perfect book and I know exactly what chapter to look up for everything. And so it's been really rewarding to finally get to a place, both for my education and career, that I enjoy doing.
Awesome. Jake, how about you?
Yeah, so I went to school for only 2 years. I went to school for business, but during that time, I was competing on a amateur level and then actually turned pro for mountain bike racing, for downhill racing, and I raced the World Cups, and then got into freestyle, started doing some FMB events and crank works, and I had a great opportunity to actually get to spend about 6 years competing and traveling the world as a professional athlete. So I had stopped school at that point, but through what I learned then and what I learned out on tour, landed the position where I'm at now, getting to be someone that went to Woodward to train and learn how to work with athletes and also progress my riding to be able to coach and do what we do today.
Very cool. Greg.
So I got both of my bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering. I kind of always knew I wanted to be an engineer. My dad was an engineer, and I was good at math and physics, so it kind of steered me down that path. I toyed with economics, business for a little bit, and that turned away from that completely real quick. So I had the opportunity in school to work on a research project for UDOT, and that kind of set my foot in the door for further research and for getting a master's degree. And eventually that opened the door to working for a private consulting company here locally in Utah, working primarily for UDOT and for cities around the area, doing a variety of transportation projects. And I feel that with my career, I've been exposed to so many different things that you wouldn't think is related to transportation or that civil engineers do, but it's really cool to see how much we're involved in making sure that the state functions, that the state runs.
That's awesome. I'm also an engineer at heart and an engineer by trade, so I appreciate that. Sarah?
Yeah, so my bachelor's degree is in statistics from the University of Minnesota Duluth. And I got that degree because a couple of professors approached me and said, hey, you're really good at statistics. You should consider majoring in it. So I did, but I didn't really know what to do once I got that degree. And the natural career path is to become an actuary. And an actuary is a profession that involves finance and statistics companies. And it didn't sound very exciting to me, but it was well paying and stable. So I thought, I'll give it a try. So I gave it a try, and pretty much right away I hated it. And so I was trying to figure out, well, what should I do with my life then? And around that time, I had a friend who casually mentioned that he was planning on going on a bike tour across the country and looking for friends to go with him. And I thought, why not? So I went on a bike tour across the country. I started in San Francisco. I ended in Georgia. And my plan was to find myself and figure out what I was supposed to do with my life. And I got done with the bike tour and I had a lot of debt. And so I became an actuary again. And I did that for, unfortunately, several years. But then one day, bike commuting to this job that I hated, I met another bike commuter. And she happened to work in human resources at a company called Quality Bicycle Products. This is one of the largest bike parts distributors in the country. It was based about 12 miles from my house. At the time, I lived in Minneapolis, and I could not believe it when I discovered that company. And so I applied, and I applied, and I applied. And finally, a year later, they hired me as a supply chain analyst. So I worked at QBP for 5 years, and then I was recruited by a former colleague to Specialized, and my career has progressed since. And just want to mention to our audience, like, if you don't know what you're supposed to do yet, don't worry, you'll find it. And also just think about the things that you love and how you can find a career in something that you love.
Thank you. That's a great point. And that was my second question, which you guys all did a really great job of kind of explaining. My second question, which we're going to skip over, but I'm going to state because it reiterates this point, is, did you always know what you wanted to do, or, you know, with your current job? Or did you discover it as you progressed through life? And all of these 6 faces on the panel here, myself included, have kind of meandered to the point where we are today through our love of cycling, and that's great. And that's also important to point out, particularly to the youth, that you do not need to know exactly where you're going to end up when you are in middle school and high school. It will find you as long as you stay true to yourself and your passions. So with that, my next question is, who was important in guiding, supporting, and sort of, you know, mentoring you along the way as you walked this path? Sarah, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, great question. So I would like to mention my manager, Nick Hobbs. I met him the very first day that I entered the bike industry. My very first day at Quality Bicycle Products, Nick introduced himself to me, and he gave me this curious look. And I asked him, like, you know, why are you looking at me like that? And he's like, well, my brother was an actuary, and I'm just wondering, why is an actuary working in the bike industry? So he knew that I was obviously good in math, but he also figured that I probably didn't know a lot about the bike industry, and he was absolutely right. So he took me under his wing. He was my bike industry mentor when I was at QBP, and then he later recruited me at Specialized. We both work at Specialized right now. He has been a great sponsor and advocate for me and has helped me move up in my career, and I'm extremely grateful for him.
That's great. Greg, who has supported you along your journey?
So the first people that come to my mind are my parents, and I think it has to go back to them being immigrants to this country and having had to struggle to get to where they are, and them wanting to push me in what they feel is the right direction to succeed, right? Because of their sacrifices and whatnot. So I know that not every person has the same opportunities that I had to have parents that supported them as much, but I was fortunate to do so. So that helped me go to college and stay in college. And additionally, while I was studying, I had professors that were very supportive, and not only were their classes really amazing, but they also were passionate about what they taught. And if you asked them questions, they would guide you in the direction whatever you wanted to know. And again, like I mentioned previously, I had the opportunity. Professor gave me an opportunity to do work on research. So that's a great thing that everybody that goes to college, you need to seek out advice and help from your professors because they're willing to give it. You just have to ask, and chances are there'll be some opportunity for you to progress that way. That's probably who helped me the most in my path.
Great. Jake, you.
I'd have to say my parents for sure. My mom and dad were very supportive with my passion of bike riding. My mom and sports background, so they understood the passion I had for it, but also gave me the confidence in the fact that I could go for it, try it, and knew that I wanted to do something with bikes my whole life, and then also encouraged that if they came to a point where I was unsure or didn't know what I wanted to do, that they'd always encourage me back into school or whatever job I had proposed in that. But they were always excited to see that whatever I did revolve around bikes, and it was something that I love, and they loved watching me enjoy growing up.
Good. Carmen, you're next.
Yeah, like everyone else, very much family. I'm the first in my family as well to get a bachelor's and a master's degree. And, family really supported even traveling and figuring yourself out as you try to meander through life. Absolutely. I'm also going to say all of my internships were very influential in helping shape where I'm at, as well as finding nonprofits that I really enjoyed working for, seeing if I enjoyed where I was. I've been a part of a lot of nonprofits as a volunteer, willing to ask questions, learn things, be a part of it, and it really helped guide me to make sure that I'm at where I want to be. And absolutely just continuing to work with nonprofits and meeting awesome people. I'll definitely say I've met people in the last year who have become incredible mentors. And I think that's important to continue looking for mentors as you develop and change in your career and figure out where you're at, as well as become one, because I've learned so much from mentors from DC to Utah, to New York, and I've had really great opportunities. And I think that's really important for, whoever's attending as well as us to remember, like, we were all there at that point where we had no idea what we wanted to do, and maybe this will work out and this sounds kind of cool. And it's good to let people know there's options out there and that you really can follow your own path to find a career that you enjoy and you love, and you're okay going to work for and logging online and being part of a panel to talk about what you do. It's really good.
Very well said. Thanks. And Brianne.
Wow, I could credit a lot of people. I think the best way to put it is that the support I've had from my cycling family, and I use that term because I really truly think that my team when I was racing, even the athletes that I work with, even as a coach, mentors that I had, other people, even competitors when I was racing bikes, have all influenced my career choice, which I said in my intro that I'm pretty lucky in how I work in the industry. There's not a lot of riders who end up with a job like mine, but part of it was hard work, and part of it was staying very present and active with my cycling family. I actually met the first sports dietitian on a group ride and was just talking to her about some of the issues I was having with my nutrition, and she said to come and see her in her office, and she supported me through some of the problems I was having, and that's what sparked my initial passion. So it kind of trickled down from there, and I think a lot of it, I have to give major credit to my coach, who, again, I'm lucky and unique in the fact that he's now my husband. So I stayed really in the family, but it wouldn't be without all of the people as I was coming up through the system that kept me in this career path. So I guess my point being, not only relationships, but on my end, sticking with it and keeping communication with people in the industry that I wanted to be a part of for life so that I could work in my passion.
For sure. This next question kind of dovetails that. What advice do you have for youth who would be interested in your career? Jake, let's start with you.
I would say just keep enjoying the type of bike riding you do, but at the same time, everyone, we all here on this panel all ride bikes, but we all ride different types of bikes, different styles of riding. But at the end of the day, we're bike riders and we enjoy it. So I would say for whatever you do, if you have your passion in that style of riding, that's awesome. And be willing to try other types of riding to just see what you think and also get an understanding of the other type of cyclists that are out there.
Awesome. I'm going to take a second to say welcome, Ron. Thank you for coming in and joining our discussion. We're going to keep, thank you, continuing down the list. So the current question in front of the panel is, what advice do you have for youth interested in your career? We're going to keep going down the list, and then Ron, I'll let you give a little introduction when we're done as well. So Greg, you're up next.
Sorry, I was muted. So advice I have for youth interested in my career. So transportation projects are always being built. You can see that when you drive down I-15, Bangor Highway, or wherever you go, there's always some kind of changes happening to the transportation network. My advice would be if you're interested in traffic engineering, is to keep in mind that transportation networks are for everybody, not just for vehicles, and that's kind of the old school mentality. So how can you change that? If you can think of a better way to design something or to implement something on our roadways or infrastructure that's more inclusive for bicyclists, for wheelchair users, etc., then do it. I mean, the world's changing, the world's evolving, and so is our infrastructure. And you, as a traffic engineer, have the chance to implement those changes that are innovative and that can make the world a safer place for everybody, because safety is key and is important. Just as much as getting people around is also making people get around safely.
Yes, awesome. Sarah, go ahead.
Great. So I want to point to something that Brianne had mentioned before about her cycling family. I would encourage everyone to just stay connected with your community and people who have the same passions as you, as well as don't be shy in reaching out to people who are professionals in the bike industry and you're interested in their career. For instance, if there were a high schooler who reached out to me and wanted to know more about my career, I would be more than happy to share some thoughts on that. So I really encourage you, if this is an area you want to pursue, reach out to people who work in the industry and ask them questions.
Yeah, that's really great advice for sure. Brianne.
So advice on getting into a career in nutrition. It's actually really common for athletes to want to go into like exercise physiology, and those are great pathways as far as being involved with sport when you get into more of the college level education. If you're interested specifically in nutrition, do the work in your undergrad and do the prereqs for nutrition, and grad school would be pretty easy. But the science is super fun, and if you want to learn about how your body utilizes food as fuel to be a better cyclist, it's really about just going to class. But I'm same as Sarah just mentioned, I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in this path. Of how I went about it. I actually went to the University of Utah, and it's one of the best programs in the country. So I'd be happy to help you on that route.
That's great. Thank you. Carmen.
Thank you. Yeah, so coming from the nonprofit side, it's definitely something to think about. You know, I may not ever make a ton of money, and nonprofits are usually really, really small team. We only have about 6 people on our staff and then some interns. And, you know, we do have to worry about fundraising and getting people involved and if we're making an effort. And so advice for youth interested in nonprofit work is to be a part of nonprofits, sign up to volunteer, sign up for newsletters, attend events, which are actually a lot of fun before COVID happened. I really enjoyed going to nonprofit events and hanging out with people of like minds and learning information and building those connections. And what really happened for me going into my career transition from working from, you know, a law firm to working nonprofit, even though I knew there was a transition to happen that I wanted. You know, I applied for a job that I wanted in policy work, and I was told you don't have the experience. And I applied at Heal Utah, and they gave me an opportunity. So go for it, apply for those jobs, go to those interviews, and you'll end up with a dream job, really. And you can really enjoy what you're doing, and then work with people like Greg and like Jake for awesome things to help make your community better at a nonprofit level and bring those two, government and community, together to build a stronger tie between it. And you can do that by loving your bike and riding your bike around town, and those two really can connect. So coming from a nonprofit world, get involved in nonprofits, and it's a lot of fun to do as well.
It's incredible the wide range of careers and paths that we have here on this panel today. It's wonderful and amazing, and I'm excited that we get to offer this to our youth in our community. Ron, again, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. Give us a brief intro as to who you are and what you do.
Yes, of course. My name is Ron Urich. I work at Slim and Navi's Bike Shop as the current general manager, and have been in the industry since I was 14 when I started in the bike shop. Not this one generally, but we're a fast-paced, moving piece, and it's pretty awesome. But I've encompassed in my last little bit to kind of run between. I've been on every single facet of the cycling industry, so from the sports marketing side, from the racing aspect, from the engineering aspect, to the manufacturing process, to the selling process, to the whole encompassing thing. I've kind of done. I started in the bike shop. I went around the industry. I went around the world a couple times, and then landed back here in the bike shop again. So that is great. So. That's pretty much me in a nutshell.
You, like the rest of us on this panel, have had a pretty circuitous route to get where you are today. I'll ask you one of the questions that I asked the other panelists. Along your journey, who was important in guiding, supporting, and mentoring you along the way?
Well, I had a lot of mentors, and a lot of different people will come and go and pull you in a lot of different directions, teach you a lot of different things. There's a lot of diversity in this industry. So to really pin it down to one person is very, very hard to do. It mostly comes from just being able to have a discussion with everybody and be able to switch gears and go a completely different direction. When I was on the manufacturing side, I went directly to the sports marketing side and had pretty much nobody to go with. So there was, I was just kind of tossed into a large corporate well and was trying to climb my way out any way I could. So biggest influences in my life are definitely probably the kind of the older mechanics and people that I grew up with, kind of the old curmudgeon-y gentlemen that in the back of the shop kind of led my direction to be, I don't ever want to be that guy. And then just you kind of learn from that and go. And so I kind of hold, you know, everyone that I've met has influenced my decisions in some way or another. And so in that way, it's hard to nail it down to one. Without being cliche and say that it's everybody.
For sure. One final question before we wrap it up, Ron, and I'll give this one to you. What advice do you have for youth that may be interested in your career path?
Again, the industry has many different veins. So for me, I would say try to get a job in a bike shop. Try to start at the back, you know, washing bikes and stuff like that, and learning and picking up and hearing and kind of absorbing any knowledge that you can find, you know, doing the menial jobs, the tasks that kind of you feel maybe above and things like that will be more humbling, and you can get a good experience learning from that. Yeah, just constantly listening, constantly figuring out which way you want to go with things. And yeah, in my travels, I kind of just did what I felt was right, and that's how I landed here.
Awesome. Jake, Brianne, Carmen, Greg, Sarah, and Ron, I thank you all for joining me today. I hope that the youth in this session who are watching got a good idea of how fun it is to work in an industry where you can make a difference in your world and still, you know, have your love of cycling be up front and present in your life. I appreciate all of your words, and I thank you so much for joining me. You guys are all free to leave. I'm going to stay on the screen and give our daily wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Be fun.
Okay, so I'm going to start our day 2 wrap up for the Utah Bike Summit. Thank you again to all of our speakers and panelists today for joining the second day of the Bike Summit conversations. And a huge thank you to all of you who listened in and participated via our session chats. Today's theme for the summit was education, and we heard from a number of people how important stories are to start the education process. In our first session earlier this afternoon, we heard from Natives Outdoors and how important Indigenous voices are to the outdoor community. Len shared, and I quote, "Stories are powerful and they can lead to policy change." Next, we heard from cyclists in Utah about why it is important to have representation in cycling. Jose Manaldo shared, "It's important that everyone can tell their story so that we can all learn how to make space." We've all seen the dramatic increase in new cyclists, and we're excited to hear the conversation between shop owners Angela Wright and Randy Gibb about how we can be supportive and educate new riders so that we can share the roads and mountains safely. Angela and Randy shared that providing information and community connections helps keep cyclists returning to their bikes. It's a long-term relationship with our riders. And finally, we loved hearing from our youth career panel and all the various ways that you can make a career connected to the outdoors and cycling. As the panelists shared, it's important to remember that it's okay to follow your own path and to find what you love, and to find mentors in your cycling family for support in finding your career path. If you missed any of today's sessions or any of the other sessions yesterday, be sure to check them out afterwards by going to the agenda. Make sure you have view session and view previous sessions on, and then hit view recording of any session that you'd like to watch. Some final reminders and announcements. Remember that tomorrow is the last day to bid on the silent auction. We do not get a full day to bid. It will close at 3:15 in the afternoon. So be sure to check in on the auction site often and keep bidding on all of those great items. My colleague Jackie Baker and I will be live tomorrow from 3:05 to 3:15 right here at the Utah Bike Summit to watch and to cheer on the last of the bidding. Silent auctions get heated as time runs out, so don't let someone snag that great prize from you. Again, we're so grateful to everyone who has joined us in this unique Utah Bike Summit experience online. We certainly appreciate our regular attendees for sticking with us, and we're so happy to have the opportunity to reach more people across the state in this new platform. Here are just a few more of the awesome partners that we're happy to have on board. Special thanks go to Utah Department of Transportation, Move Utah, TravelWise, Draper City, Salt Lake County Bicycle Advisory Committee, Wasatch Front Regional Council, AECOM, the American Planning Association, WSP, Mountain Land Association of Governments, Get Healthy Utah, Horrocks Engineers, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, Office of Outdoor Recreation, and the Salt Lake City Division of Transportation. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for our Advocacy Workshop Day. Have a great evening.